listening to Loving BDSM Podcast, episode 26. Hey everybody, Kayla Lords here. Today, let's discuss the things submissives get wrong when they're looking for a dominant or entering a relationship. Welcome to the Loving BDSM Podcast. If this is your first time listening, glad to have you. If you're back for another week, welcome back. Loving BDSM is produced every Friday for your kinky pleasure and education, and show notes are found at kaylalords.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. If you love what you hear, we'd love a good review on iTunes to help other kinksters find us. You can follow me on Twitter at Kayla Lords or stalk John Brownstone at southernsirsplace.com. All links are in the show notes. Just a quick reminder for everybody, I do now have a page on Patreon. Anyone who can and wants to can support this podcast and become my kinky patron by showing your love with a monthly pledge for as little as $1 a month. You can go a little higher and you get perks like monthly videos of me talking about kink, sex, writing, you name it. And I'm hoping to get John Brownstone in on the action. You can stop your pledge at any time, so you don't have to do it forever. And no worries, y'all. If you can't afford to do something like that, or it's just not your thing, I totally get that. I still love you just for listening to me each week. Okay, y'all, let's get to the show. Let's me stop begging for kinky patrons. On to the show. Now, in episode 24, just a couple weeks ago, I talked about the signs and red flags of bad dominance. And I promised, one, I wasn't dom bashing. I was wannabe bashing, actually. And two, to come back with something about what submissives get wrong, okay? Because submissives aren't perfect either. So here we are. Now, I used a blog post that I wrote back in October of 25 to sort of start this off because I think that's good information and why reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. But I've also added to it. So some of this sounds familiar to anybody who's sort of been following me for a while. That's why. Okay, some of these things are things I've heard from long-time knowledgeable, experienced dominants when they're sitting around a table kind of just, talking to one another. And others are from pure observation and, of course, my own opinion. And the belief that if something is wrong for a dominant to do, then it's wrong for a submissive to do too, okay? So here goes, no particular order. These are just some things that submissives do that can send up some red flags for dominance, or can just ruin a potential new or even established relationship. First one, telling a dominant you have, quote, no limits. Okay, y'all. Just in case you're really new to DS and you're a brand new submissive and you don't know this, let me just lay this out for you. Most dominants I know have a sarcastic streak a mile wide, and they are more than willing to push your buttons, okay? So their response to the I have no limits statement is wild laughter, followed by a dare. Will you let them shit on your face? How about pee down your throat? Can they cut you with a knife? Now, yeah, for some people that's a kink, but for most of us we're going, whoa, back up, that's a hard limit, okay? So when you tell a dominant you have, quote, no limits, you've just sent up a red flag for them. And it's one of two things, and it could be other things, but I know it's one of two things. You're either really desperate for a relationship, and so you think you'll just say anything to get them interested in you, or you have a lot to learn. You're really new to this, and you think that's what you're supposed to say. Okay, here's the deal, submissive friends of mine out there. You don't have to be full of bravado with a new dominant that you meet, okay? It is okay to say, I don't know, when you're asked about your limits. That's okay. If that person is right for you, they're going to work to figure out your limits. They'll help you find your limits. They'll stay within those limits, and only when they feel you're ready will they push against those boundaries and limits, okay? If you say to a dominant, well, I don't really know what my limits are, and they walk away from you, that they were not the one for you, okay? That's simple. No judgment, just that's how that is, okay? So, the next one, no particular order, promising a dominant you'll do anything for them. This is right up there with no limits, okay, y'all? I think most of us have said this to a dominant at some point or another. I know that I have, okay? Now, I have, after years of knowing John Brownstone, I have said to him, we can do anything. But anything in that context, he knows I mean Anything within the confines of what we're both okay with, within our mutual limits. But when you've just met somebody and you don't know anything about them, do not say you will do anything. You don't know what that dominant might ask of you. You don't know how sadistic they are. You don't know how twisted they are. You don't know what kind of sense of humor they've got. You don't know what their biggest, craziest kink is. Okay? They are a stranger to you. Now, my dominant friends, who were the ones telling me about this, will actually, because remember I said they're sarcastic as hell, they will look at that submissive and say, okay, I'm going to need you to cut your own finger off for me. Guess what? Those submissives usually back the hell away very quickly or laugh like they can't believe they just got asked that. But you know what they don't do? They don't cut their finger off for them, because that they said anything, but they didn't really mean anything. Okay? What you think of when you think of anything in terms of kink and DS, and what a dominant is thinking of when they think anything, can be two completely different things. Now, does that mean that if you come together with a dominant and you explore with one another, your quote anything could become crazy and wild and woo, all kinds of out there kind of stuff? Of course it can. Together, as you're discovering things together and you're learning each other together. But going up to a brand new to you dominant and going, I'll do anything for you. Be careful with that one. You do not know who you're dealing with yet, okay? They could be perfectly nice and go, oh, okay, I would just like you to, lick that girl over there. But they might ask for something like nutso, okay? So just putting that out there. Next one. Submitting too soon. And that's kind of a vague thing, so let me get very specific with that. Some dominants, I know, not all, but some have a test, in quotes, air quotes, test, when they meet a submissive that they don't know yet. Okay, they don't know if they know they're unattached, but they don't know them well enough to know if they like them or want to pursue something that's brand new to them. They will command them to do something. They'll drop something on the floor and tell them to pick it up. They'll tell them to go get them something from someplace else. And I don't mean asking politely, hey, could you please go do this? I mean, it's a command. It's in dom voice. It's, I am dominant. You are submissive. Do this thing. Okay. What they have told me is they're looking for two things here. They're looking for you to have the immediate urge to want to do it. Okay. Like you start to move forward because you can't help yourself. And then they're looking for you to go, wait a moment, you're not my dominant. I don't even know you. No, I'm not doing that for you. Okay. Not everybody's, crazy enough to do the test. I'm not saying you are always going to come across this. What I am saying, though, is you are allowed to say no. Just because somebody is dominant does not mean they get to order you around when they first meet you. That's not how this works, okay? Now, in all fairness, most of when I have seen this, and I have actually seen this in action, and it is kind of weird because I respond to the dom voice even when it's not my dom. I'm like, ooh, I want to go pick up that napkin off the floor, and they weren't even talking to me. It usually happens in public places and when people first meet, okay? If you have been talking to somebody online for a while, you've built a rapport, you're really thinking, ooh, I might want this person to be my dominant, and they do that to you, how you react however you want to react. You have established something with that person. I'm talking about the random total stranger that you just happen to know is dominant and they just happen to know you're submissive. No, you are not required to do something just because a dominant that you don't know orders you to do it. Just keep that in mind. Okay, now we're going to get into kind of the new stuff that I've just sort of started talking about in different places because it's been on my mind lately. This one is for those submissives who proclaim, to anybody who will listen, that they will have no responsibilities as a submissive. They don't want any responsibilities as a submissive. Now, y'all, however you choose to set up your DS relationship between you and a dominant, that's between y'all. And it is entirely possible that your perfect dominant wants nothing more than to pamper you. And the only time they ask you to do anything, like force something on you, require consent, is the kinky, crazy sex that you both really enjoy. Okay? Now that's cool. You do you. And no, for anybody out there who's going to object later, I am not talking about the highly micromanaged master-slave relationships where a master makes every single solitary decision. They micromanage down to the smallest detail. That is a class all on its own, not what I'm referring to, and I am not qualified to speak about, okay? Although I still believe that even a slave micromanaged at that level has a certain amount of responsibility, even if that responsibility is to always be available to their master, okay? It's still a responsibility. But no, I'm talking about the vast majority of the more, quote, typical DS relationships, okay? In those, submissives have a shit ton of responsibilities. We do the tasks our dominants specifically give us. We do the tasks that we know need to be done. Sometimes that our dominants don't know need to be done, but they know they want them done. How do you know that's one of those tasks? When it's not done, they're looking at you going, why didn't you do that? Just telling you personal experience. We maintain our own life, whether it's our working life or our kids or taking care of other family members, taking care of our home, all of that. And then, by and large, most of the submissives I know, we constantly keep our dominant's own needs firmly in our mind. Even when they're not asking for things, we are thinking about what we think they need, okay? It seems to be, from my experience, a common trait among us that we often want to take care of them before they ask. And no, I don't mean just in household domestic responsibilities, although there is a lot of that. Little side note, with the new to you dominants, I know dominants, not my own, not John Brownstone, but there are dominants out there who like really don't like surprises and don't want to give up control over anything. You might be trying to anticipate their needs to serve them better until you know them really, really well. You've been in a relationship for a really, really long time. Always ask. Don't surprise a dominant until you know they don't mind being surprised. I can't even completely surprise John Brownstone. I have to warn him that I'm surprising him. I won't tell him necessarily what it is, but I will say, I have a surprise for you, because it's a control thing. Most dominants don't seem to just love like random surprises. So you might have them uppermost in your mind all the time. You might be trying to do things to anticipate their needs until you know what they are okay with. Just always ask, okay? But my point here, I'll get back to the whole thing. Unless a dominant knows that they want someone who is only there to submit to their sexual desires but not serve in any other capacity, or that they want to micromanage every detail of your life, and I mean going when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, what to wear, when to speak, when to sleep. I mean, you get my point of micromanaging, okay? Those people aside, proclaiming that you, as a submissive, don't want any responsibilities can be a big old red flag for an experienced dominant who knows what they want out of a DS relationship, okay? Your relationship is about to tank, or it's never going to happen in the first place if you truly believe that you're not supposed to have any responsibilities, okay? Just putting that out there for you. Next one, and this is more of a common complaint I have heard online from dominants, and not necessarily, my dominant friends, because those people are actually in fairly good relationships, but just sort of out there in the ether, these things that are getting said. And that's a sign of submissive who's not doing everything right, is not doing as you're told. Now, I know that sounds a little counterintuitive. Remember when I told you that it's okay to push back when someone who isn't your dominant tries to order you around? Please don't ever forget that. Keep that in your mind always. But there's another part of the equation. Once you're willing to play with a dominant or go into a period of consideration with them or move your existing vanilla relationship into DS or just commit to a dominant that you've met, it's time to do what you're told. Now, caveat, before anybody freaks out on me, because there's always a caveat, I am making the assumption here that what you're being told to do is something you've talked about, discussed, and agreed to, okay? Yes, you are allowed to withdraw your consent at any point. But if you haven't stopped consenting and you still want to be the submissive one in the relationship, it is expected that you're going to do what you're told. And no, I'm not talking about disobeying for punishment, okay? Punishment being across, disobeying to get the fun punishment of a spanking or a whatever it is your thing. Okay, no. Some dominants like that and some do not. I mean, I'm just going to put that out there. Not every dominant appreciates the punishment stuff. John Brownstone likes it and doesn't. Okay, he's going to give me a playful and very painful swat on the ass if I get a little too sassy. It'll usually be with the belt, and that is not my favorite thing. So it's punishment, but we both enjoyed it because I'm a pain slut and he's sadistic, and yay. But that's one thing. When I willfully disobey a direct order, okay, and I'm still consenting to his control in the relationship, the punishment is going to suck, okay? It's going to be something he knows I hate. Why? So that the next time I am tempted to willfully disobey, I will remember the punishment and not do it again, okay? Now, y'all, if you are being told to do something that just truly bothers you, or you reject on some level, maybe it hits a limit you didn't even know you had, you have a responsibility to discuss that with your dominant, okay? Simply deciding not to do something, but consenting to the relationship, and then not communicating about why you didn't do whatever it was you were supposed to do, or renegotiating the terms of your relationship, because, like I said, maybe it hit a limit you didn't even know you had. That is the quickest way to create problems in your relationship, or just end it all together, okay? I know some dominants, very experienced dominants who have had multiple submissive partners over the years, they don't stand for it. You lie to them once or twice, you don't obey them once or twice, in, done, gotta go, okay? It would have to be a truly deep, loving relationship for those people to be willing to give multiple chances, okay? So, if you come up across something, you're told to do something, real life will intervene, y'all. I get this. I'm told to do something, but my kid needs me, and I'm a parent first before I am anything else. Or part of the agreement, and for us with John Brownstone, this is the case, part of the agreement is he understands the kids always come first, okay? He can want me to make his coffee, make his lunch, wash his underwear, or whatever it is he wants me to do. But he knows if the kids need me, they come first, okay? So you were given a direct order, you disobeyed it. Why? Because your kids needed you. Somebody was sick, right? Something, anything with kids. You have to tell your dominant, hey, you wanted me to do this thing, and I could not because... And then you deal with the repercussions of that. It could be that your dominant doesn't really accept your answer because that's kind of an excuse. You could have done it earlier. You were already behind, whatever. Or it could be they go, ooh, okay, no problem. Do it now. Do it this time. Let's figure out when you can. But it's about your intention, okay? If you just willfully go, I'm not doing that because I don't want to. What are you doing? Okay, you're going to kill your relationship in very quickly. But all of that actually leads to my last one, okay? Refusing to communicate or just outright lying. Here's the deal, y'all. If it is bad for a dominant to do it, or not do it as the case may be, it is also bad for a submissive to do it, okay? Now, should you expect to be perfect all the time? Of course not. Is it hard to overcome years and years of never expressing your feelings or thoughts or desires and just start sharing them with your dominant, especially if you fear their disappointment? Absolutely. Okay, that's a normal reaction. To me, communicating fully and honestly is one of the most difficult things about DS in general, regardless of whether you're a dominant or submissive, because we're taught in our vanilla lives to not speak. We learn, whether it's because somebody told us or because of how people behave with us, that sometimes it is better not to say anything. You avoid a fight that way. You avoid confrontation that way. You don't hurt people's feelings that way. Guess what? It's a whole new world in DS. Now, do I think vanilla relationships should communicate the way we do in DS? Absolutely. But in DS, you have to communicate, okay? It's just part of the deal. And if you're not willing to try, at least to try, what are you doing in a DS relationship, okay? Enjoying kinky sex, that's one thing. Committing to a power exchange relationship, something completely different. And it's okay to only want the kinky sex and not want everything else that goes with a DS relationship outside of your bedroom. And it's also okay to think you want DS and then realize you don't once you get into it, and that goes for dominants and submissives, by the way. It is not, however, okay to never speak up, say you want this relationship and then refuse to communicate, or worse, the worst thing I can think of, lie about what you're doing, what you're feeling, or anything else, okay? A lying submissive is one that is going to get dropped pretty quickly by the more experienced dominants. Okay, just as you expect complete and total honesty from your dominant, they expect it from you, and they should get it. Just like you should get total honesty, they should get total honesty. Now, I'm not saying total honesty is easy. It's not. It's very, very hard. The things in life that are very, very hard are often worth the trouble. Okay, just telling you that. So here's the deal, because I understand when communication is hard, speaking the words can be very hard. My throat used to close up. No sound could come out of my mouth. I could not speak. My go-to solution, and I recommend it to anybody, I'm dominant or submissive, but just in general, write down what you're thinking and what you would say if you could actually speak. Now, I know some of y'all are going to think, well, that's real easy for you to say. You write all day long. Write it down. Writing is hard. Writing is hard, okay? Not going to pretend otherwise. But we are not talking about something with perfect grammar or perfect spelling or the right punctuation. You're not turning this in for a grade. You are getting your thoughts down on a piece of paper or your computer screen in a way that is a little bit easier than trying to speak them out loud. The cool thing about writing, you can do it one of two ways. You can word vomit it all the way out and just bleh, right on out and just get everything that's crazy in your head out and hand it to your dominant. I don't really recommend that method, but if you're not comfortable with writing, just do it that way. The other way I recommend, the best way, is you word vomit out, you get it all out of your head so it's not making all that noise in there, and then you get to edit it. And you get to go, oh, that sentence didn't make any sense. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to rework it. Oh, look, I have something coherent now. And hopefully my dominant will read this and understand what I'm thinking and feeling, okay? Now, my experience tells me, from observation and actual experience that I have lived through, once you learn that your dominant is going to respond in a positive way to the fact that you are sharing your thoughts and your feelings, even when those thoughts and feelings are not themselves positive, it will then become easier over time to speak your mind, okay? I've been with John Brownstone. We were just talking about this the other day. In a few more weeks, it will be exactly 3 years to the day that we laid eyes on one another, okay? So we've been together, we've known one another for 3 years. There are times I still have to write it down. It is really, really rare. It's usually in the really big moments of life. When his sister was really sick in 2015 and right before she died, he was going through some crap and I needed to be able to tell him stuff, but I didn't think it would come out of my mouth the way I wanted it to. And I can tell him anything, and I know I can tell him anything, and I had to write that down for him. He actually still has that letter. I have seen it multiple times. It was filled with a lot of I love yous, and you're an amazing man, and do not let these crazy people bring you down, and all this, positive affirmation stuff, but I didn't feel like I could say it, so I wrote it. Even then, even now, if tomorrow something crazy came up, and I found that I could not get the words past my throat, I would write it down. So that is my offering for those of you who go, but talking is just really hard. I just freak out. My face gets hot. My ears burn. My, sounds get all muted. My throat closes up. I gotcha. Been there, done that. Still happens every once in a while. Write it down. It might sound like crazy talk to you on paper. You might go, I couldn't turn this in. They would give me an F. This is not for a grade. This is to help your dominant know what the heck you're going through so that you can work through it. Okay? If you are not willing to do that, if you just flat refuse to communicate or you are willing to lie, whether your intentions are pure or not, say goodbye to this relationship. Okay? It might not be immediate, especially if your dominant's not really experienced, not really confident in themselves, and especially if there's a lot of emotions, good and bad, between you and your dominant. But in a newer relationship with an experienced dominant, I just don't see it lasting very long, okay? So, parting thoughts, you know how I do like my closing for the end. I know that everybody is different, and I know that some of y'all out there are listening and have heard this list, and you're like, I did that, I'm in a beautiful, loving, amazing DS relationship. Good for you. I'm very happy for you, okay, that this all worked out. But I hear from too many submissives who are not turning their vanilla relationships into DS ones. And they go, but I don't know how to find a dominant. Where are they? They're all crap. They're all this, they're all that. And a lot of times, yeah, you're just having bad luck and you're coming across really crappy ones. But sometimes, maybe you're doing some of the things on this list. If you identify with even half this list, it could be that the problem is not just that you're coming across crappy dominance. It could be that you have sort of made the really good ones kind of back away from you and go, that person needs a little bit more experience before I'm willing to approach, okay? I'm not saying this is to blame for why you are alone and lonely in the world, but it is certainly not helping you, okay? So just keep that in mind. When in doubt, ask questions. When in doubt, communicate. When in doubt, be honest. Always be honest, not even in doubt. But, if you're like, oh, I have a choice. I could lie to save somebody's feelings, or I could be butt-ass honest and maybe hurt their feelings. Go with butt-ass honest. I don't know what butt ass means. I just came up with that expression right then. Okay, y'all, that is it for me this week. This went way longer than I intended. If you do have any topic suggestions, ideas, questions, or whatever, feel free to reach out to either myself or John Brownstone. We really do respond to every email we receive, and if we don't respond, it's because we didn't get it, or you sent a picture of your dick or your tits, or said something gross, and we don't respond to gross dicks or tits. So don't say anything gross and don't send random dick pics. We will not respond to those. Keep it kinky, y'all, and we'll see you next week.